Hello and welcome to The Law According To. I'm Mike Minnis, recruitment specialist 2M Legal, and this is the podcast where I speak to legal professionals about their legal career journey to date. In this episode, I'm joined by Zainab Zaeem of Runnymede Law. Zainab shares her unique story about how she decided to pursue a career in law and how she had to overcome many obstacles to make it happen. It's a story that's underpinned by her drive, desire and determination to make it. This is The Law According to Zainab Zaeem. Hello and welcome to The Law According To. And in this episode, I'm very pleased to be joined by Zainab Zaeem. Zainab is an award-winning radio presenter as well as an associate at Runnymede Law, specialising in litigation, employment, and occasionally immigration or previously immigration. Welcome, Zainab. Thanks very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mike, for the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
Now, as we've discussed, this podcast is all about you and your career. So what I'd like to do is go straight into that and let's go right back to the beginning. Firstly, what drew you towards a career in law?
It was all kind of a fluke, really, if it's the correct word. As you know, in prior conversations, I was in my late 20s, I would say 28, when I went to university to get my law degree. Fun fact, I don't actually have an undergraduate at all. No undergraduates in law, no undergraduates in any of the disciple. And I think we have to go back a few steps for people to understand why that is. So I got married very early on in my life out of choice. I was 17 when I got married. I was 18 when I had my first child, and he was 3 months old when I went to college. I ended up having twins in my second year of college. So my very own buy one, get one free. So by the time I left uni at the age of 19, I had 3 children and only 2 A-levels, a C and a D. So not enough UCAS points for me to go uni. So I decided, of course, not to pursue any further education at that moment in my life. I then started working. The time I was working, no professional services would take me on, because we are talking, my eldest son is 22, so I'm talking about 20 years ago. Flexible working wasn't really in existence that much. Not many lot of firms or companies wanted to take people on who would only be working part-time or had to keep leaving the office to go pick their children up from school and so on. So I started working in a textile industry around the age of 19, 20. Started off working part-time as a packer, worked myself up to full-time supervisor within like 6 months. And then a few years later, lo and behold, I ended up owning the company, owning the business. And I took it from a loss to a profit, increased the productivity, increased the amount of people that we took on. And then it just kind of went from there. So completely different industry doing textiles. But from the age of 17, I was doing immigration. So I was helping friends and family, because at the time in my community, I was the only British born with a computer, believe it or not, because we are talking early 2000s when computers were still, non-existent and not the norm. And we had one of those really big, old-fashioned computers. So people would come to me for me to read their documents and ask what it meant, and I'd have access to the internet, and I'd have to quickly search up something, which I used the word quickly, but it was never quick. It was
I can imagine not in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it was quite a long thing to do. So kind of stemmed from there, me helping people, and then I started helping friends with, say, neighbour disputes or tenancy disputes or landlord issues. And then when I was, I think around 23, 24, I might be getting my ages wrong. A family relative of mine who used to work for the Home Office found out that I helped people, and even though I was just helping them, not taking any money whatsoever, he did say to me that that's actually not allowed, and I had no idea that that was the case. So he goes to me, I've got 2 choices: either stop helping or go get myself accredited. So I chose the latter, did a little bit of research on how I could get myself accredited, went ahead and did that, did what's known as the Office of Immigration Service Commission exam, so OISC, which is a branch of the Home Office, did their training, did their exams, created my own business, submitted my business plan, created my own company and got myself regulated for about a year or two doing that. I wasn't satisfied because it limited me to working for only myself, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to start working for the firms. So I did what's known as the Legal Service Commission exams, the LSC, which then allowed me to work in law firms. So I started volunteering once I got those exams. And then one day, just by chance, I was talking to an NVQ assessor for my staff at the textile industry. And he goes to me, and I think I was about the age of 27, 28. And my youngest daughter at the time, she was 18 months old. And he goes to me, why don't you go uni to do law? You know, you'd be really good at it. And I remember laughing in his face. I was like, no chance, you know. I'm not someone who's academically bright, going to uni to do 3 years of a law degree, not an option. And, you know, I've got the business. So he then told me about the graduate diploma in law. And he said, why don't you look into that? That's an accelerated course. It's 9 months, 3 years of a law degree done in 9 months. So I got in touch with the Solicitors Regulation Authority at the time, and I told them my circumstance, and they then asked me why I never went uni. So I gave them the lowdown, and they actually said to me, because I've met their own criteria, which was I was over the age of 25, extenuating circumstances as to why I never went uni, and been in a managerial position for more than 5 years, they can issue me with what's known as an academic achievement standing award, which is otherwise known as a mature student certificate. And that would allow me to go on to uni. So they issued me with that. I applied at university. Uni rejected me because they'd never seen such a thing. I then got in touch with the SRA, got them to battle it out with the uni. And then the day before the course was due to start, I got onto the course, and that then gave me less than 24 hours to sell the business, raise the fees for the course, and sort out childcare for my daughter. And I managed it. And then I rocked up to uni the very next day, having sold the business, paid off the mortgage, paid the uni fees, sorted out childcare, and the rest is kind of history. So when I started the GDL, I really did struggle. Having not been in education for over 8 years, not having an undergraduate degree, and only having 2 A levels, a C and a D, I really did struggle to do the GDL. But I got a pass. And then I went on to do the legal practice course, of which I got a merit, which was absolutely amazing because that's more practical, based on practical life. And I had 15, 18 years worth of that to the table. So that kind of came naturally to me. So once I wasn't academically there, I made up for all of that I missed out on the marks for the GDL. And the two combined then gave me the LLB with the Montfort University. And that's how I got into law. And then I had my other struggles, which was no law firm would touch me because I didn't have a 2-1 in an undergraduate degree in any disciple. So it took me about 8 years to get a training contract because that then presented itself with other obstacles. So yeah.
Well, let's come back to those obstacles in a moment. Just because so many questions, but I'm going to have to kind of limit them to a degree because otherwise I think we'll be here for days. But you know, such a unique journey into law. You know, I speak to many people and quite often, you know, some people have a very traditional, follow the family footsteps, etc., etc. Others are inspired by somebody that they knew as a family friend or things like that. Your journey completely left field. It is, you know, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Do you know what? I'm really interested in loads of it. But one thing I've got to ask you is, tell me about the process of selling your business and doing all that organising, but firstly, selling your business in a day to raise the funds to go to university. How did you already have a kind of somebody in the wings, or how did that work?
But my business was quite thriving. It was quite thriving business in Leicestershire, actually. So when the opportunity for me to go to uni, my staff had already had an inkling that I was on my way to doing something, because I never kept them under the clouds. I always told them all of my plans, personal and professional, because we were one big family. I mean, we fought amongst ourselves,
Hmm.
as as you would do. Outside, it was quite a different story, but the majority of my staff knew that this is the line that I was thinking of taking. So
Hmm.
when I got the call from DMU attendance saying, well, admittance, whichever department it was, all I did was ring my supervisor and I said, I need a buyer. And then I put the phone down and I must have sat down on my bed, and like within an hour he rang me and he goes, I'll buy it. And I said, are you
Wow.
sure? And he goes, yeah, as long as you stay in the background guiding me on all the other items that you take care of that I'm not quite, clued up on. And I said, yeah, that's fine. So he bought it. So it um, kind of worked out in that. But then I was
Yeah.
grooming him to take over, if grooming's the right word. I was teaching him all the
Mm.
aspects of business, because effectively the reason why my business was a great success, because I can't sew for the life of me. And it's a textile industry, we were manufacturing leisure wear. And I was good at the packing side. I was excellent at the packing side. I
Hmm.
also own some of the textile side as well. But delegation, and because I delegated all my tasks, and me and the
Hmm.
supervisor between ourselves, we took responsibility of, certain items. It was really easy for him to take over. So I kind of stayed on board in the background, showed him the invoicing process, introduced him to all our customers and things like that in the background until he was fully fledged to take over. To university, once my classes were done, I would go either to the paralegal role that I was volunteering at, or I'd go to my previous business to then show him the rope. But it wasn't that much that he didn't know, because we shared the responsibility. It was just the customers that he didn't have interaction with, or it was the invoicing process he didn't have interaction with. And the banking, so he needed to take over the banking as well, which in itself was the most arduous task of them all. Because you have to go to the bank, you've got to sign the papers over, you've
Uh-huh.
got to make sure there's a split, good division of funds and whatever. But I literally gave him the business. So he took it all, and whatever he paid me went towards the mortgage and the uni fees, and a little bit extra left over for spending and things like that.
Yeah.
I kind of worked out in selling the business, but back in the day, it was a very lucrative industry anyway. So it
Yeah.
would have been
Sure.
really easy to get a buyer, if not him. I'm fairly confident that somebody would have popped up within 24 hours.
Oh,
But
wow.
if not, then I would have made alternative arrangements to get the fees paid off. It's just I didn't want to run the business and go uni at the same time.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, does he still have the business today, or?
We actually sold it off, believe it or not, at the time. My husband, I refused to sell it to him because I wanted good money for the business.
Uh-huh.
A couple of weeks or months later, I can't remember. I think we sold it to my ex-husband now, my husband
Oh,
at the
okay.
time, because I wouldn't sell it to him directly, so he took it off. But
Oh,
it
okay.
just it made sense because of the way the components were made up. Because I had the packing side and then I sold the textile side, and packing doesn't work without the textile, and textile doesn't work without packing. So it just made
Right.
sense to have the two conjoined together. But from what I know, I think the supervisor went on to have a different business, but we've lost touch since, because I am talking
Okay.
20 odd years ago. So I don't
Yeah.
know what he's doing, but I did recently meet his wife and they seem to be doing really well.
Oh, good.
That's
Good.
good.
Good. So, so another question, kind of linked, I suppose, is so were you going to university locally? Because I'm thinking
Yeah,
about
so
the
I went,
logistics with regards to childcare and things like that.
yeah. So I went DMU, Democratic University, which is from where I was
Oh,
living at the
yes.
time. Was only about 15, 20 minutes away. And my husband at the time refused to let me go any other university anyway. It was DMU or no others, which is why when DMU first said no to me, going to another uni was not an option because of the restrictions I had elsewhere. So I had to then get the SRA involved and literally battle it out. And they actually said no because they'd never seen the certificate that I'd produced. They've never had anyone without an undergraduate degree applying for a postgrad degree. So they
Hmm.
found that really confusing, but it was a straight up no. There was no questions being asked, which is really funny because I work really well with DMU now. I'm an alumna for them and I do a lot of volunteering for them. And
Uh-huh.
my efforts and my achievements have been recognized by Democrat Uni. And I guess it's one of those that when they came across something that they've never seen, rather than, look into it a little bit further, it was just a straight up no. And that's when I got in touch with the SRA. I'm the kind of person that when I have a challenge or an obstacle in my way, I
Yeah.
have my hissy fit. I like to call it my hissy fit. So I throw all my toys at the pram. I'll do all my F's and blips that I need to within the four walls that I have. And once I've got that out of my system, I then go back to the drawing board. And the way I start is, what's my end goal?
Uh-huh.
What do I need to get there? And what do I currently have? And then I eliminate the process that way. So going to uni was what was my end goal at the time. What I needed to get there was either an undergraduate degree or a postgrad degree or the certificate. I'd already got the certificate. What do I need to do to get there? So I got back in touch with the SRA and I said, well, hold on. You're the ultimate regulators when someone qualifies as a solicitor. You've issued me with this certificate. University is not recognizing it. Clearly, there's a gap in the process somewhere. But the lady I
Mm-hmm.
spoke to was really lovely. She goes, don't worry, give me the details. And she then got in touch with DMU and spoke it out with them. Or I like to call it till it out. So she must have spoke to them and explained the process. And then next thing you know, I got a call from DMU accepting me in. And then I went to the first day of studies at the GDL. I think I was me and I think three or four other people were the only ones in our late 20s, late 30s. Everyone else was straight after their undergrads. So
Mm-hmm.
majority of them, I would say good 90 odd percent, if I've got my maths correct,
Mm-hmm.
had come onto the GDL straight after some form of an undergraduate degree. So they
Yeah.
were all, really highly educated people. Some were very studious and they already knew how academia works. And
Yeah.
there's me coming in with no knowledge of university. I didn't even know what Freshers Week was, which, by the way, was not available to postgrad students.
Oh,
So I still
really?
missed out. Yeah,
Oh,
still missed out. So I've
oh
never had a
dear.
Freshers Week at all.
So
Yeah.
how did you feel? And from what you've said, I don't imagine this was that much of a challenge at all. But being an older student, with the majority being much younger and obviously already in the education system and have been for quite some time, did you feel that there was there a kind of period of having to adapt to that, or did you just kind of just go straight in and throw yourself into it and just embrace the challenge?
I embraced it because that's the kind of person I am, and I'm very talkative. I'm a massive chatterbox. I get along with everybody, but I'm also like Marmite. You either love me or hate me the first time you see me. People tend to make up their minds the very first interaction they have with me because I am very transparent. I'm an open book. What you
Uh-huh.
see is what you get. So I very quickly made friends. Of course, there are a few that probably avoided me, but some of them are still very, very close friends to me. I've got a best friend now who's a partner in a very well-known firm down in Stamford. And the
Hmm.
others are scattered around the country, and we still keep in touch. We regularly meet up and so on. What I struggled with was the academic side.
Yeah.
So, for example, I mean, you can see the amount of books behind me just there.
Yeah.
Any number of my counterparts could probably pick up the book, read a page, and understand it just like that. I still can't, and I'm, been a practicing solicitor for several years, and I'm really, really good at what I do. Also, I've been told touch word, but I have to read the page just to absorb it. I then have to reread that page just to understand it, and then I have to reread it in order to move forward. And that's how I am able to pick things up. But if you were to show me something practically, that my supervisor was to show me something and say, right, this is the process, I'll pick it up just like that. So if someone shows
Mm.
me something, I pick it
Mm.
up, try to read it from scratch. Unless I'm doing it for the first time, it's very difficult for me to pick up on things. But whilst that I consider that my weakness. But whilst that's also my weakness, it's also a strength of mine because
Mhm.
it makes sure that I'm eliminating any mistake, eliminating any shortcuts. So when people are doing things on a practical basis, you pick up shortcuts. You might think you know the rules, but actually you've misconstrued the rules. Me doing it this way allows me to make sure I understand things fully before I do something for a client. And it kind of eliminates any of the mistakes. So
Mm.
going to university at that age, I found really challenging. What really did help was my twins. My eldest at the time was studying abroad. So my
Mhm.
twins were about 7. I'm sure I've got my numbers all wrong. But they were really young. They were in primary school, and they actually taught me the STAR method, the mind map, things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
So when they had their homework and I had homework, And I know this sounds really silly, so people go to the cinema so for family time and so on. Our family time was doing the homework together. So we'd
Okay.
all get around the dining table, we'd have a bowl of snacks or whatever. I'll be sitting there with my homework, they'll be sitting there with their homework. And then they'll be teaching me, mind maps and have them all around the dining room, the living room, and they'll be like, right, Mum, what have you learnt today? And sometimes they test me as well because my maps are right in front of them. So what they'd do is if I'd have them to the back of me, they'd
Hmm.
sit in front of me so they can read it at the back. And then they'd test me on my knowledge for cases and, stuff like associations and stuff. So they would actually test me. So my kids actually taught me how to get through university because I myself didn't know any of the revision tips and things like that. So they really did teach
That's
me.
amazing.
Yeah. So
That
they've
really
gone
is
to
amazing.
university twice, is what I say. They're currently in uni at the moment. They've been uni twice as well.
They've already been with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
college twice because I was pregnant when I went, and then they went. So that's how I pick on them about it. But yeah, so support is key. I mean, going back to education at any point in your life, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Mhm.
But you do need a good support system. I had their grandma who lived with us at the time. She would make sure that early in the morning there was food ready for me, even though I told her time and time again, I'll grab something from the shop at uni. No,
Mm.
food was our fuel, she would say. And she used to wake up really early. So by the time I woke up at 7, 8 o'clock to go uni, food would be ready made cooked. She bought a special tiffin from India, hot, keep food warm for like 8 hours or so. She'd make my favorite food, she'd put it in the container, crisp, chocolate, drink, you name it. And,
Amazing.
my lunch bag would be ready for me to take to uni. And having that kind of support in the house where I wasn't worried about making food for the kids and stuff like that
Yeah.
allowed me to do all the running around that I did do, all the volunteering that I managed to get through and pick the kids up from school, drop them off, go uni, go to the tutoring sessions and so on. So
Yeah.
support is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it be family or whether it be friends, it's crucial, isn't it? 'Cause it stops you from getting to that situation whereby maybe you become overwhelmed because you've got so much going on in your home life, but then you've also got so much going on elsewhere, and especially if you're kind of volunteering and things as well. That's a pretty full 24 hours, isn't it? If you
Yeah,
didn't have that network of support and people to
absolutely.
rely on, amazing,
There was
absolutely
no
amazing.
social life. So I couldn't go to any weddings. My mother-in-law at the time, she had to attend to bring back pieces of cake for me because she knew I love wedding cake. So I'd miss out on all of that. And
Yeah.
any opportunity I did get was filled with taking the kids out somewhere or
Mm.
just spending a bit of time with them at the park and stuff. So you got to list your priorities. What is your priority? And I had a friend circle, but not what I've got right now, where we go out and we chill, almost on a daily basis. There was
Mm.
nothing like that at the time, not just because of uni life, but because of my personal circumstances as well. The marriage that I was in, we'd end up becoming quite hostile towards the latter, 5 or 6 odd years. So there wasn't that much for me to do other than study and be with the children and so on. And that
Mm.
actually can wreak havoc on the brain cells as well. So
Yeah.
it didn't really help when I was studying, but having my uni friends guide me, as well as having people in the background, a few friends that I did have, all of that support is what got me through. And I wouldn't be here today had it not been for everyone.
Mm.
Even my ex has played a part in it. And I always say that to him, that I am where I am today because of everything that's happened in my life, because of all the challenges. And I don't know about many people, but I know some people will be able to relate to this. Some of your biggest haters are people who are close to you, people that you know. And I've had a lot of that because of the life that I've lived, the steps that I've taken. And, people blatantly tell me I don't really like you. And I'm fine with that because I'm not there to be their friend. But when it comes from people that you know really well, people that are
Mm.
supposed to be your family acquaintances or family members, then it comes down to, well, do I really need you in my life? So there was a
Mm.
period where, I got rid of all the toxicity and I just put my head down. When I came up, I was qualified and, there were so many things I'd done without realizing I had done that. And it wasn't until I qualified as a solicitor and I did a qualification party. So I was basically celebrating my achievement because I never
Mm.
did a graduation party or anything like that. And I had this drama group take care of all the kids. And one of the owners had got in touch with me and he was asking me so many questions about my life. And I didn't understand why. And he goes, look, I've got a surprise for you. And what he actually did was he used my nieces and nephews to role play my life in certain stages.
Oh,
The
wow.
shadow puppets, behind the shadow thing.
Yeah.
And we switched all the lights off. And the first thing that went through my head was everyone's going to be really bored. But when the light came up, there was not one dry face in that whole
Oh,
room.
wow.
Everyone was in tears, especially me. But everyone, like, when they all come up to you, that was overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then when they made me do a speech, I was like, I ain't doing a speech. I don't need to do a speech. And then one of my family members came up and kind of did a quick rundown, a summary of everything that I'd achieved. And that's when I realized, wow, in the face of all of this adversity,
Mm.
I had done this, and I've gone through a hostile separation, a divorce. I was, single parent for ages. I was working part-time. At one point, I had no job. I refused to go on benefits, and I worked my way up from part-time to full-time, in council, administrator to team leader, and so on and so forth. And all the hoops that I jumped through without even realizing. For me, it was a case of I think of my life as a round circle.
Mm.
Every time something good goes right, it comes full circle and three, four things will go wrong. Then one good thing will happen, then three, four things will go wrong. So every time something goes right for me, I actually have a negative mindset. And a lot of people tell me off for that. But I always prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That way, when the worst happens, I'm already prepared for it.
You're ready for
So
it.
once I
Yeah.
do have that positivity in me, I do have more of a negative mindset because I know what my life is like. I'm 40 years old. I've lived enough of it to know which way my life is going to lead me. And, I get called off for it a lot, but it allows me to be able to take control when the obstacle comes in my way, or
Hmm.
allows me to move forward on my own without actually having to worry too much about how am I going to do it, who's going to help me, where do I need to go. These key components that allows you to move on in life. And that's the way I've always lived my life. I'm always ready for the next obstacle. As sad as that sounds, I am always ready.
Well, it's good. It's good to be ready, isn't it? I can kind of see what the people who are telling you off about it would, why they would,
Yeah,
because I imagine they want you to maybe have a more positive outlook. But I suppose if you've got that strength of character that you're, like you say, you're prepared for whatever life throws at you. It's almost like celebrating your successes, but not celebrating them too much, isn't it? It's kind of
that's it.
like saying, this is great, but this is now. And, there'll be good times and there'll be bad times. And let's be prepared for the bad times, but enjoy the good times.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
anything can be taken away in the snap of a finger. You have it today, you might not have it tomorrow. Something might happen that takes it all away, and that's the way I've always lived. So, I've gone from being poor to rich, poor to rich, to poor to rich. And when I mean rich, I don't mean wealthy, wealthy. I'm talking about,
Mm.
not having to worry about what amount is in your bank account, whether you can pay the bills today or whether you got food on your table, which is a period that I went through when I was a single parent. There were
Mm.
days when I didn't even have food to put on the table. I'd go to bed hungry, but make sure my kids had food. And
Yeah.
the reason why I refused benefits at the time was because I knew there was somebody worse off than me. And if I was to go on benefits at the time, I would probably be taking away that money from someone else who needed it more than I. And God has given me two legs, two arms, a mouth. All I needed was to persist in getting myself a job, any job, just to get my foot in the door. So I started working part-time in local government and moved myself
Hmm.
up in that, and then moved from one role to another role to another role until eventually I became a leader in a software company and was doing really well. And then I remarried, and then the husband at the time, he decided to push me back into law. And he goes, why don't you take the jump? I'm here for you if you need me. And I was too comfortable. I was really comfortable, Mike, in the job that I had. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to, it was good paying, it was really nice, flexible, loved the people. And then that presented its own obstacles. Law firms were not budging from the fact that I didn't have an undergraduate degree. Then there was added complexity of me not being in law for 5 years. Then I proved to them that I continued to keep my fingers dipped by continuing my training in alternative means, keeping up to date with all the laws and the changes in the rules, still continuing to help people where I can. I actually did my the case for my own father. There is family order in place, so I can't reveal too many details. But my father was my brother was one of the sub postmasters. I don't know if you've heard about the Horizon flaws with the postmaster,
No,
with the
no.
post office. So it's a massive litigation case, one of the world's biggest at the moment, where
Mm.
post office claimed that their Horizon system had no flaws, but actually had a lot of flaws, which convicted a lot of sub postmasters, and made sub postmasters put money back into the system where there was a shortfall because of the system itself. My brother was one of those sub postmasters. Luckily, he wasn't convicted because he hadn't done anything wrong and we were able to prove it.
Mm-hmm.
But he was one of those that the post office took the post office away, so he was suspended, unfortunately. And my father was the landlord of property, and the post office had been quite sneaky in the way they did things against my father and my brother. So we actually took the post office to court and we won the case against them. We got a
Oh,
summary
wow.
judgment for 3 months worth of rates against my dad's property. And I did that case after I had my law degree, before I got the training contract, years before I got the training contract. It was my first ever fast track case. Never done it before, didn't know what the rules were, very nervous, wasn't even well at the time. Not only did I win, not only did I manage to keep the win against us because they'd appealed it, um, but the case was actually aired on The Sheriffs Are Coming. I don't know if you've seen the program where
No,
the
I know
Bayleys
I've
come.
heard of it. Yeah, I've not seen it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah.
So my father asked me to remain anonymous at the time, because he didn't want anyone finding out that it was his post office. The moment it was aired, everybody knew whose post office we were talking about. But the case itself was aired on The Sheriffs Are Coming. So
Right.
that I actually put that on my CV, and that gave me a narrative to talk about with law firms. It
Mm.
opened up the conversation where I was able to say, yes, I might not have practical experience in working in a traditional law firm, but here's what I've done, X, Y, and Z. And then I was able to prove it. And about 5 years after, 5 or 6 years after I did my law degree, I got my first proper paralegal role, but it was outside of Leicester. It was in Bedford. So
Oh,
traveling
wow.
52
Okay.
miles
It's a
there and
trek.
52 miles back. So it was a combination of train, and I ride a motorbike. It was a combination of riding my motorbike, which I later crashed. I had to give up the offer of a training contract because I became bedridden and
Oh,
so many
blimey.
other things. So, like I said,
Wow.
we're not gonna scratch the surface today in this episode, but
We could make a whole series. Um,
absolutely, the Fast and Furious collection has nothing on me, is what I always say. But the takeaway from this is, if you're persistent
mm,
and if you've got that tenacity, then you will persevere, you will continue.
mm,
But you've got to have faith in yourself. And what I always say to people, and I volunteer, I've mentioned before, I mentor a lot of students and graduates from Democratic University, Leicester Uni, Birmingham Uni, and a few other organizations, and mostly anyone who reaches out to me on LinkedIn or people refer me. So I'm happy to help anyone who's willing to put the work in. And what I always say to people is, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. If you don't know your strengths and weaknesses, you are going to struggle. Because when that obstacle, when that challenge comes, how are you going to be able to get through them unless you know where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses lie? And where
mm.
you've got your weakness, use your strength to turn that weakness into that strength, and use your strengths to become even more stronger, if that's even possible. And that's the starting point for anything that I always do. Where do my weaknesses lie in this challenge? Where do my strengths lie? What's my end goal? What do I need to get done? What have I done so far? Crack on and let's move on. And that's the way I always get through life.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And one of the things I like about what you've said, not necessarily immediately there, but throughout, is that you've
you've looked at, well, whenever an obstacle has appeared, you've not looked at it as an obstacle, you've looked at it as a challenge that you need to overcome or get round or deal with, rather than, okay, this is a barrier to my end goal, and therefore I can't go any further. It seems as if it's always been that, okay, well, this is a setback. How do I now negotiate my way around that? And that's similar to what you just said there with regards to, knowing your strengths and weaknesses and how you can then navigate your way to where you want to get to.
Absolutely. I mean, I would have to say that's because of everything that I've been through in my personal life. I mean, I grew up in a very narrow-minded community up north, traditional mindsets, and there was always challenges for us South Asian women whenever we wanted to do something. My father always wanted me to be educated, always wanted me to go to university. My brothers were not too keen on it. And then, society itself would always frown upon women going into education. Things have now changed considerably. The mindset has now moved on, and my brother's mindsets and my family's mindsets have now moved on, which is fantastic. It's great, but because of everything that happened in my personal life, it's kind of who I am. It's not something that it's not a persona that I can put on. It's just something that I'm so very much used to. And I mean, take my motorbiking for example. I'm only 4'11", which in real life is very short.
Really?
I'm really short. And I ride a motorbike, but the bike I've got is not a small bike. It's a Honda Rebel 1100.
Oh,
So for
wow.
those who don't know what the zazz of a bike is, it's a very heavy, very loud, very fast bike. But I love it. It's more like a chopper bike, like a Harley style. So it's a low rider. And I can now
Okay.
put my feet on the floor. It's called flat footing. But before this bike came out, because it was only released a few years ago, I've been riding for 9 odd years. The only bikes available to me were your sport versions, which were always tall and bulky. Now my arm length is short, my leg length is short, and I've got a bit of a huge stomach. So when I sit on those bikes, the tank comes in my way, so I can't stretch forward
Yeah.
and I can't stretch my legs. So every time I bought a bike, I constantly drop it. So every time I drop the bike, the first thing that went through my head is, to the bike, actually, who are you to stop me from riding this? And I'd get back straight on it. I've crashed, I've dropped, I've done all sorts to the bikes. I've flown over the bike with the bike following me, following an accident. I've still got straight back on the bike, injuries permitting. And I've just carried on and worked my way around it. I've chopped my seats, I've lowered the front forks, I've lowered the back forks, I've brought the front handlebars forward. I've done everything within my power. And I've ridden a few bikes in that way, bar one or two, which
Yeah.
no matter what I did, was still too tall. I could have shifted a little bit on the seat when I was at the tilted legs and things like that. But it came to the point where you want to enjoy riding. You don't want it to be like an algorithm-based ride where you're constantly having to calculate, oh, is my foot going to reach the floor if I, park the bike up? And all my bike mates are always ready. With my previous bike, whenever I went for a bike ride, I would either roll down a hill because my foot would go on the floor. So I knew that I can't take that hill. So once you went up the hill, I would have to take the long way around and then meet with them somewhere else. Or if we were about to park up somewhere for a bit of a break, what they could just put their foot down and park up, I'd be calculating the ground zone to see. I reached that. Oh no, I don't think so. Okay, let me go a bit above. Oh, let me stop here. And what I would do sometimes, I just stop wherever I found the space to do so. I park up, get off, and either my husband at the time or one of my mates would walk over, move the bike for me, turn it around, ride it back and park it up for me so that all the bikes and us can be together. So we got into a bit of a routine. And again, support. I surrounded myself with those people who are willing and happy to do that for me, because we are a bit of a biker community. We're one massive, bike family. And then you kind of get used to the roads. You know which roads to go on, which ones to avoid, where not to stop, and so on. But now with this current bike, I get everything in one. I get the adrenaline, shall we say.
Yeah.
I get the power. I get the speed of the bike and everything. The only thing I'm missing is not a sports version. but I'm still riding a bike. So I've sacrificed on that little bit to
Yeah.
keep my passion going. But the beauty is I can put my foot down and none of my mates now have to worry about hoisting me up onto the bike or lifting the bike up for me. And there's been occasions where I'm literally falling on one leg in the air, and the biker makes have all rush towards me. One to grab the bike from going down, the other one to grab my body from the side and the back, and the other one to grab my legs to try and hoist me up. There's been some funny scene, especially in places like Stamford and Skegness and things like that. So we've had a blast, but you know, I've always thought of myself as, well, why can't I do it? You know, who's stopping me? And the way I see it is the only limit is myself. And if I limit myself, then only then can I not do something. But if I don't limit myself, and if I carry on and continue, then anything is possible.
Yeah. It's all about that positive mindset.
No, it's there sometimes, just not at the beginning stages, but I eventually get to that mindset sometimes.
You have the cycle, and then you've got that positivity.
Yeah.
And the positivity, if you look at it, I suppose if you're looking at that cycle from a positive point of view, you've got that positivity, and you may well know that there's some bumps coming in the road, but you return to that positivity. So, that's I think a different way of framing it, rather than saying, I'm at a positive point and knowing there's going to be some negative things. You're kind of at the positive point, and you're going to return to that positive
I like
point,
that.
irrespective of what's going to happen in the meantime, because we all have things that aren't particularly pleasant in life, but we also all have things that are great, and it's kind of focusing on those good times and allowing them to kind of dictate our life rather than the bumps, shall we call them. I like that. So just out of interest, on the when you were customizing, was that all customization you were doing yourself, as in getting new kind of handlebars and things like that, or were you actually literally getting kind of tools out and bending them yourself and things?
I'm not that good yet, although I was thinking of going on a course that will allow me to learn the maintenance of my bike. But no, those were professionally done. Not all at the same place, but sometimes you have to get a few done in one place and a few done at another place. Because, for example, the links that you need to shorten the back forks of the seat, not all dealers will have that. You have to get it as an aftermarket item. And not all dealers will put it on. So you then have to go to another dealer or another garage who's willing to put it on. Some don't top your seats off. So then I had to find an upholstery guy who was, it was quite far away, who would take the seat off and chop it and then take out all the foam and put different foam in and so on. But the only issue I had is I've lost a lot of money on my bike, because you can't do any of that before doing a test ride. I've never, ever had a test ride on any of the bikes I've got. I've had 9 bikes in 8 years. I think I'm on my 10th bike now. Because you can't do those modifications if you're not going to buy the bike. It's standard 101. When purchasing, you have to own the item before you can do any of those modifications. So you get the bike, you do those modifications, and then it's just wishing for the best and hoping that everything that you've done works. But I've actually had one bike lasted me 1 week. So my husband at the time really wanted a his and hers version. So he literally made me sell my CBR 500 Sports at the time, which was a beautiful sports, red and black bike, nice and thin. So I didn't have to worry about my stomach being huge for the tank. And, it was just proportionate for me, lowered the front seats and the back seats and the handlebar a bit. And it was just perfect, but he made me sell it after about a year and a half. He made me get the CBR Cafe Neo 650. He got the CBR 650. I said to him, that bike is cool. Wouldn't listen. We bought it. The dealers lowered it as much as they could lower it. Got it delivered. I looked at it and I was like, no, this bike ain't for me. He wouldn't listen. So we took it to our local test area, which is Tesco's. So we took it there and I dropped it, immediately dropped it. And I was like, no, I'm not riding this. And he goes, oh, it's all in your head. So off we went with our mate to Stamford. Very interesting ride that day, because the scene I was telling you about when I tried to park up, the bike was about to go. Husband at the time hadn't noticed that the bike was about to go, me along with it. So 3, 4 of the biker mates all ran up. One grabbed one leg, the other one grabbed my back, the other one grabbed the bike, and 2 of them hoisted me off and managed to stop the bike from going down. So I sold it within a week.
Oh,
So I
wow.
literally had it for about a week and a half. It was gone. So I lost a lot of money on that bike. But it's a part and parcel of life. You win some, you lose some, and I lost on that one, but I won in some others.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
works out.
Do your older kids ride as well, or is it
My
just
eldest, so my eldest is 22, has a license. He has it's known as the CBT, Compulsory Basic Training Certificate, that allows learners to ride up to 125cc with an L plate on the bike.
okay? Yeah,
So
yeah,
he had that for about 2, 3 years, but he's in uni now. And where he is in uni dorms, there's no security for bike.
yeah.
So
Okay.
he's been there for a year and the bike was parked up. So he was, it depreciates in value. So he asked me to sell it for him. So we've just sold it about 2 weeks ago. He's waiting to hit the age of 25. As soon as he hits 25, he's going to go for the full bike license
Okay.
and then get the full bike. And that way he's not worried. By then, uni will be finished and so on for him as
Yeah,
well.
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, he's a biker. And then I tried to get my 2 out of 3 kids to ride bikes. So we got them pit bikes. But there's nowhere in Leicester that you could take them. So those are off riders.
Right. Okay.
So you can't ride them on the road. You have to take them to private land.
Yeah.
And before we used to have places like Mallory Park in Leicestershire that allowed you to take your bike and ride, but they've taken all of that away, which I didn't know at the time.
Oh,
So there
really?
isn't
Okay.
really any private land that we can take the kids to ride those pit bikes or at least learn.
Oh,
So
that's a
that's
shame, isn't
been,
it?
yeah, so we're selling those now, which is a shame because one thing I've taught my daughter, who's now 14, nothing is going to stop her unless she stops herself. So if she wants to do martial arts, if she wants to be a motorbiker, if she wants to be an interior designer, fine, whatever she wants. I'm really keen on her getting a private pilot license just as a hobby. And I keep
Uh-huh.
saying to her, I said, when you get to the age of like 80, 90, your friends are going to be flashing their driver's license and say, let's go for a drive. You'll be flashing your private pilot's license and say, let's go for a flight. How cool would that be? Taking your mates away to somewhere in Europe just for the weekend, as opposed to going somewhere for a drive. And she was very reluctant. It's taken me about 3 years, but she's finally agreed.
She's coming around, is
Just,
she?
just coming around, just to get the license for the sake of getting the license. But and just coming around, she seems interested now. I hope she doesn't change her mind. But I just think for her, it's another, not testament, but it's just another reminder that nothing should stop her.
Hmm.
And in our society, not our religion, our society tends to stop women from achieving things that not many people achieve. But
Hmm.
for her to be able to get that encouragement from me, which is something I lack in my upbringing, will allow her to have that mindset moving forward. She can do whatever she wants, as long as it's within the bounds of law and within the bounds of religion. There's nothing stopping her. And our religion doesn't stop women from achieving whatever they want to achieve. It's society's cultural barriers, not
Yeah,
religious
absolutely.
barriers. So I'm really keen on her being able to accomplish whatever she wants. And if she doesn't want to do anything and just stay on her bed watching her phone all day long, which is what she's currently spending her summer doing, fine. Completely her choice, as long as she knows my money's mine and she has to make her way
Yeah.
in life to make her own money. I'm happy with that.
I
But
was going to say
as
you're much more laid back in that situation than I am. My daughter, luckily, is only 11, but and only just coming into the phone phase, should we say? So at the moment, she's quite happy to put her phone down and not kind of stare at it all day long. But I know those days are not far off now. But yeah, I certainly won't be relaxed to spend your summer looking at your phone. Definitely not. So. Ordinarily, I go through a whole bunch of questions, but you've pretty much covered everything that I talk about what your challenges were. We've talked about some of your challenges. I'm sure, as you've mentioned, we've not even scratched the surface on probably many of the challenges that you've had to overcome. we talk about your kind of triumphs, and again, you've kind of shared that, which is amazing, and also kind of advice, and you've shared plenty of advice. I think that people who some it would resonate with a lot, and they'll be in very similar sort of situations. Others will maybe even just be coming into education later, or have similar sort of kind of cultural challenges in their earlier life. Where I think there's many aspects. It's multifaceted, your story, and I'm sure it's going to appeal to many people, which is amazing. I suppose the key thing to kind of wrap up with is, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, whether it be with regards to kind of legal aspects, if they want to get in contact with you to kind of for legal support, or for any other reason, I guess, how would they do that? What's the best way to get hold of you?
LinkedIn is probably the best way, because it does have my email address on LinkedIn. I don't have my mobile number on there, and I don't tend to give my mobile number out unless, and there's very good reason, unless you work hard, extremely hard, to get, your not challenges, but some of the few things on your list accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will give my number. And the reason why, and I'll tell you why, Mike, I've made myself available to anybody and everybody, and time is precious. And I've had people who have approached me 2 days or even 1 day before an application is due to be submitted, expecting me to drop everything and spend time with them, literally drafting their whole application from start to finish, or their CV from start to finish, or the cover letter. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to offer support and guidance, provide feedback, answer any questions they may have. And then when I've turned around and said, no, I'm not going to be able to do that, because actually I've got a pre-existing commitment I can't get out of, although I've tried to, they've actually come back in not so kind way. So now what I do is, I'm still available to help everybody. WhatsApp me on LinkedIn, get my email address, introduce yourself to me. If you want a face-to-face meeting, if you're local to Leicester, happy to do that. If you want an online meeting, happy to do that. If you just want me to look at your cover letter or CV or an application, I'm happy to do that. But once I've seen you put the work in, and I've come back to you with the feedback, you've then come back to me to say, I've done this, and this, and what do you think about this? Or even if you've gone away and said, thank you very much, I'm going to use this, I'm now going to go away and do it myself. At that point, I share my number. And I say, if you ever need anything, even if it's quick, even if it's just a quick question that you want, and it's going to take too long to go through LinkedIn or by email, ping across a voice note or a message on WhatsApp or text, and I will respond as soon as I can. But I need to see that person is going to work for it, and not just expect us to do the work. So I'm a bit strict when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I have had a few that have done that. Equally, from the amount of people I've helped, almost everyone's got my number, and almost everyone's put so much time and effort in. People have gone on to get work experience, training, contract applications, paralegal work. Some have gone on to do other bigger and better things for them in their life. But it's not a case of where I'm all taught. Let's put it that way. I put the work in as well. I will follow up. I will, if there's a particular area that someone's not too sure of, then I will set them a task, and I will get them working on that task as practice before the actual task, if there's time available. I will do role play in workshops with them. So if they want interview role play, I'll be the interviewee and I'll be the interviewer. So I'll get them to play the role of both. I will listen to their answers, and I will give them feedback, and I will give them the way I answered that and an explanation of why I've answered it. So it's a lot of time and effort on my part as well. And I'm willing to give that, as long as the opposite person is willing to put that work in. So what I will say is, if you're willing to put the work in, then get in touch with me. If you're thinking that it's going to be a flyby and I'm doing all the work and they're just going to sit back and do nothing, then don't. I'm not the person for you, because I will make you work for it. It's as simple as that.
It's not a quick fix. You're not the get out clause.
No. Well, welcome to real life.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
if you're because this does go out on audio as well. So if you are listening, then we'll put a link to Zainab's LinkedIn in the overview. We'll also do the same on YouTube. This will go out on LinkedIn in shorter bites, sound bites as well. So as long as you're happy to, I will tag you in those as well. So there'll be various opportunities for people to get in contact with you. But be prepared to put the work in as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. It's been an absolute, as I said earlier, we could talk for hours because your story is fascinating, and I think we've only got kind of probably 2 or 3% of that story so far. But it's been amazing. It's a great episode, and thanks very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor, and I look forward to hearing feedback of it.